See.
My friends, there are a lot of complex issues in life, and there are a lot of simple ones too. Let's not overthink the simple things and make them complex and complicated and labyrinthine if we don't have to. This is Howard Riell. My show is called Real Truth. Welcome to it. Some things are simple, deceptively simple. For example, item from the Daily Caller. The Supreme Court will hear arguments Tuesday over the Trump administration's bid to append a citizenship question to the 2020 Census questionnaire. Democratic states and city governments are challenging the citizenship question, fearing that diminished non-citizen participation will deprive them of federal funding and seats in Congress. The Justice Department, on the other hand, says citizenship questions have regularly appeared on past census forms and enhance the enforcement of federal law, unquote. Folks, some things are real simple. As a native Brooklynite, I know from simple, okay? The United States always asked citizenship all the way until 1950, when for God knows what reason we stopped. Some people want no borders to this country, no ICE protection. They want floods of human beings from the third world pouring in here. Those are the people who say don't ask whether or not someone is a citizen. On the other hand, there are people who value this nation's sovereignty and the safety of its people. And yes, we need to know if the people answering the census are citizens or not. Because it's the citizens we need to take care of, not the non-citizens. Less representation for these illegals if they're not included in the census, well, that's a good thing. They shouldn't have representation. They should drag their sorry asses out of our country. Well, that's where it gets real simple. What do we ask non-citizens? Well, non-citizens, people who are here illegally, need to get out. And that's the end of the discussion. If you're expecting more, there isn't any. They need to leave. As long as they stay, they're criminals. By the way, what's that you say? You're absolutely right. The people living in the house with them who may be legal, but who know that the illegals are committing a crime, the legals have a right to report the criminal, to turn in the criminal. If they don't, then they are also culpable. So what we have here are politicians, the ones who say, no, you can't ask about citizenship. They're helping people get away with crime. They're helping people be accomplices to crime. And by the way, those politicians themselves are accomplices to crime. You know, we overthink things. Well, we don't really need to, and the strings are being pulled by politicians, and the useful idiots out there do exactly what they're guided to do. What do we do with illegals when they get to our border? How do we process them? What do we do with their kids? Well, the answer is I don't give a rat's ass what happens to them. I didn't invite them. They show up on our doorstep. Okay, leave. I'm not responsible for what happens to you when you decide on your own to come to my country and try and break the law. My job here in the United States is to defend our borders, and that means you have to leave. If you won't leave, you're going to get hurt. What's going to happen to your children? Well, you probably should have thought of that before you left home, right? Right. We are a country that has lost its way. We've lost our identity. We've lost our will to live. I'm speaking in general terms, obviously. We don't know what the United States of America is, why it is, what it's been. They don't teach that in school anymore. We don't know why we have a right to keep people out of our country. Oh my God, do you lock your door at night when you go to sleep? Why? Are you a racist? You don't mean you're going to prevent people from coming into your home, are you? Well, America is our home. And yeah, we have a right to say who does and does not come in. This country takes in over 1 million legal immigrants every single year. And so I don't want to hear about America being hateful and racist and not letting people in, because that's BS. We let tons of people in here, but if you're going to come in and ignore our laws, then you have to take your ass out. If you're in a house where a Census Bureau worker shows up and you're an illegal alien, I don't know why the census worker doesn't just call the police or call ICE and have you arrested. Well, I know there's a law preventing it. Thank you, politicians. But the illegals, I'm not worried about what to do with illegals. I'm worried about getting the hell rid of illegals. They need to go. Post haste, ipso facto. It's not our job to be fair to people who are breaking our laws. And if only we were not lost as a society, if only we still had all our marbles, then everybody in the government would know this and they would act as one to solve this and the problem would be solved. Instead, we are wandering in the metaphorical wilderness. We don't know who, what, when, where, why, how, and that's why we seemingly cannot stop people from entering our country illegally. I was reading a headline earlier today. 1,600 illegals arrived in New Mexico in one day. Were there any terrorists in that group? You don't know. I don't know. Anybody with Ebola? I don't know. You don't know. Anybody there coming because they want to get on welfare and get free stuff? I don't know, and you don't know, probably. It's like playing Russian roulette. We are playing Russian roulette with this country's life. And I'm pretty sick of it. That's not the way I lead my life. And my life is intimately connected to the United States of America. And so I don't want our country doing business like that anyway. It's stupid. It's dangerous. And by the way, it's racist. The Hispanic people coming from Mexico, they have rights. Everybody living in America already, you have no rights. Just shut up and do what we tell you. No. Doesn't fly. It won't fly. So can we ask people if they are citizens when we take the census? Absolutely. And the people who are not citizens but are here in the country illegally, they need to go. Voluntarily or not, they need to go. And if we can get that simple equation right, then America will be on the way to fixing a lot of its problems. Let's take a break. We'll be back. More Real Truth ahead on this Tuesday.
Specializing in maintenance and install of commercial and residential property. We pride ourselves in our clean-cut, approachable crew. Visit our website at surfingandlandscaping.com. Our install crew can transform your backyard into the outdoor living space always free. Call me, Brian, 960-460-TURF for a free walkthrough and estimate so we can see the main topics. Family-owned, locally operated. We've been serving Northern Colorado for over 18 years. Thank you for your support and supporting PAGE.
Before hiring a realtor from a big corporation who outsources their jobs and pays little to no taxes, ask yourself, what do you really want in a realtor? You need a realtor who's honest and has integrity. A realtor who's focused on the client's bottom line, not the realtor's bottom line. To provide personal, over-the-top service before, during, and after the transaction. You want a realtor that knows how to market your property. Hi, I'm James Morgan, a realtor with Bridget & Associates LLC. I am your Colorado real estate specialist. Land deals, mountain cabins, or urban dwellings, I've got you covered. For the first-time home buyer, we will make it the best experience. If you are looking to move up or downsizing, we will do better than your last transaction. Call me today at 720-203-0731 or visit coloradoproperties.com.
My friends, let's go back in time to the 1960s. You remember Judy Collins? She had a huge hit called Send in the Clowns. Remember this one? Where are the clowns? Send in the clowns. Okay, Judy, I got it, and I will accommodate you. Here are Monica Crowley and Bill O'Reilly, and they're sending in the clowns. They're looking at the 2020 Democrat presidential candidates, and they are clowns. From one to the other, they try to outdo each other with the most ridiculous, brainless proposal you can think of. Free everything. Free college. Free health care. Free this. Free tuition. No borders. Each one is more of a gaping anus than the one before, and they try and outdo each other. So let's send in the clowns. Bill O'Reilly, Monica Crowley, go.
Let's bring in Monica Crowley.
It's true, Democrats always do have a lot of money to run campaigns with because Democrats are whores. They'll say anything and do anything for money. All right, two questions. Hold on a second, Monica. Chill out. Number one, are the people of the state of Pennsylvania, and I spent 15 years of my life living in Pennsylvania, are they going to vote for a complete horse's rectum simply because he was born in their state? I hope not. Number two, he's got the PR, Joe Biden has the PR machinery spinning, trying to portray him as blue-collar Joe, which is another guy from blue-collar Pennsylvania, right? Wrong. He has been in Washington, D.C., in the corridors of power for decades, close to 40 years. There is nothing blue-collar about him. He may try and convince you there is, because he's hoping you're an idiot.
Michigan, critical states that Trump won last time and is going to lead again. Joe Biden is a civil race.
Well, I just told you the Democrats are whores, didn't I? Joe Biden doesn't believe in those things, but he'll say them to get elected. He'll lie. He'll prostitute himself in order to get elected. Well, haven't Democrats since time immemorial done that? Didn't Bill Clinton present himself as a left-leaning right Democrat And then once in office, he was just the opposite. He was very left. It's what Democrats do. They lie. They're whores.
He's got what, a 40-year record that he actually put the whole election reverse. States Democratic Party. He has a long track record of failure. And a lot of things that worked for him 30 years ago that then will not work in today's party. So he's got a lot of explaining to do. And himself,
That's right. He has a reputation as the premier horse's rectum in Congress. You don't want to ruin a reputation like that, do you, Joe? Yeah, hang on, Monica. Monica, come on. Bernie has no chance. Bernie is an avowed socialist who took his honeymoon in Moscow. Americans don't want socialism. Yes, there's a fringe. There are some Americans who are stupid enough to want socialism. They're a small minority. When push comes to shove, Americans just plain do not and will not accept socialism, and so Bernie has zero chance. Next.
with the voters on that side. About Thanksgiving on Thursday, tomorrow actually, in Washington, Bernie Sanders is a booster. This is counted. And what I want to understand about is that, remember in 2008, the Democratic primary was Obama versus Hillary Clinton. And I ran the track over there. Well, a couple of years later, Democrats filed a big momentum in contest and won. Hillary Clinton won 8 years earlier. We gave her the nomination. We took her back to that. And I'm wondering whether that kind of a no change or the impact that may have was strong enough on folks on the base. They want to make up to Bernie because what was clear the last time I was in Clinton, there is still a lot of
Yeah, Monica, hang on a second. You are positing that the Democrat Party wants to make it up to Bernie Sanders. One little chink in that armor, however, Sanders is not a Democrat. People in the party don't feel they owe him a thing, and they're right.
a large part of what you see in Bernie Sanders' support, polling, fundraising, and so on, a lot of that is simply 2016 sentimentality, and I'm not sure it's going to hold over the long term. It may, but it may not.
I don't think he can beat Donald Trump, even though he's going to run on Medicare for all, free health care for all. That's his main goal, to run on that. And there's appeal for millions of Americans who want free health care. They vote for Bernie just for that.
Yeah, this upcoming election, my friends, is a test. No, it's not a test of Donald Trump or Bernie Sanders or any candidate. It's a test for the American people. Have we learned anything, or are we still dense enough to vote for anyone who promises us free stuff, knowing all the while that we cannot afford it? Have we gotten smarter, or are we still stupid as a country? That's the test in 2020.
I just don't see him beating
Excuse me, the correct pronunciation is but I gag. It didn't take Beto O'Rourke very long to become yesterday's newspaper, did it? Yeah, stop. Let's be honest. Can we? I mean, the show is called Real Truth. I have an obligation to speak the truth. Let's be honest. Liberals are supporting him because he's openly gay, and they want to show how liberal they are, and kumbaya, and everybody's wonderful, and we're accepting, and all that junk. He's the mayor of a third-tier city. He's a nobody nowhere. And the only thing that's propelled him to notoriety on a national basis is that he's gay. Tell the truth.
He has a military veteran, served in Afghanistan.
Does anybody out there think that the average Midwesterner wants to vote for a gay man? Raise your hand. I don't see any hands raised. Excuse me, correction, Bend, South, Indiana. Correct. Kamala Harris is also yesterday's news. In fact, she's last week's news. She's never been a very bright woman. She has contradicted herself many times since she threw her hat into the ring. She's an idiot. And she's already been chewed up and spat out. She's finished.
One thing that she's missing is the national charisma.
My friends, you ever go on vacation, you're gone for a week, and you come out, and you see a loaf of bread sitting there on the counter that was fresh when you left, and now you look at it and you go, ugh, and you got to throw it out? That's Beto O'Rourke.
This thing going for the chicken thing.
Stop. Stop. And stop. Will Americans vote for someone simply because he looks like Bobby Kennedy? Will Americans vote for someone for president, the highest office in the land, simply because they look like someone? Well, here is the crying tragedy, my friends. The answer is yes. Americans will vote for someone for the most harebrained reasons. And that explains a lot of what's gone wrong in this country, because we have apathetic, silly, feather-headed, unintelligent voters who'll vote because they like the shoes that someone wears. Or they'll see a candidate smile and say, I think he's a really good person. They're not voting based on a record, based on accomplishments, based on the issues, positions. And so we have an awful lot of people who may indeed vote for Beto O'Rourke, despite the fact that he has loser written all over his face, simply because he looks like Robert Kennedy. And that is the great lament of the United States in the 21st century. That is what historians will write about. What happened to America? How come it came apart? How come it disappeared from history? Because we have people who will vote for a presidential candidate because he looks like Bobby Kennedy. Now, we've got a commercial coming up. And after the commercial, we're going to listen to Camille Paglia, because she's going to be weighing in on feminism and progressivism. Little change of pace, but I think you're going to want to hear it.
Fantastic, still, just plain cap. I'm glad that the North Black person is corrupting stuff. I try and handle it. That's true. Servicing the full North Black person before taking. I'm sorry.
realtor who's honest and has integrity. A realtor who focuses on the client's bottom line, not the realtor's bottom line. Who provides personal, over-the-top service before, during, and after the transaction. You want a realtor that knows how to market your property. Hi, I'm James Morgan, a realtor with Grisham and Associates LLC. I am your Colorado real estate specialist. Land deals, mountain cabins, or urban dwellings, I've got you covered. For the first-time home buyer, we will make it the best experience. If you are looking to up or downsizing, we will do better than your last transaction. Call me today at 720-203-0731 or visit coloradoproperties.online. Let me do a great job for you.
Grandpa's Corner Gun. We are a family-owned and operated business. We run a gun store, pawn shop in Longmont, Colorado, and have served the front range for nearly 45 years. Currently, we have a quarter of guns for sale on a 4,200 square foot building. Grandpa's Pawn and Gun, according to alcohol, tobacco, and firearms, is one of the state's highest volume gun. We are also the Disney Pawn Shop, and we offer the lowest interest rates on term loans in northern Colorado. Seriously, why would you find about it anywhere else? We've sold over 45,000 guns since 1999. So if you are into those cold signal characters or new locks and activities, we'll take good care of you. People you can trust and the pawn shop you can trust. That's Grandpa's Pawn and Gun, 303-772-7952. That's 303-772-7952.
All right, guys, I'm looking at Facebook. Here's an item. I don't know if it's a real item or if it's meant to be a parody. It's a picture of Joe Biden. Underneath the headline says, Democrats announce all 2020 candidates will forego armed security to protest gun violence. That's got to be a joke because the Democrats are hypocrites. They don't want you to have guns. They're going to make sure you don't have guns. But they're going to have guns. They're going to have guards, armed security around them 24/7. But you can't have that. Only they can. Beneath it, I'm looking at a meme about Marianne Williamson. You know, she's the snowflake, who wrote something with God. The Hollywood Illuminatis love her. Not Conversation with God. A Course in Miracles. That's Marianne Williamson. She's also running for president. Course in Miracles. She writes, we have an amoral economic system. We need to discuss this. We have millions of American children who are living in chronic despair and trauma. We need to discuss this. We have layers of systematic racism that are leftovers from slavery. We need to discuss this. Marianne, I'm sorry, I'll give you a second to take your head out of your ass. Marianne, while you're palling around with your glittering friends in Hollywood, America has been having these discussions for years now. Maybe you haven't been privy to them. Maybe you've been too busy shopping and sipping champagne, I have no idea, or writing more brainless books. But this is a sample, Marianne Williamson, of what the Democrat Party is offering America. Vapid brainlessness. Now let's listen to a woman who is intelligent, Camille Paglia, author, talk about the fact that the progressive idea, and she knows because she's long been a liberal, progressive idea, she says, is to replace men with government. To replace men with government. I think she's on to something. Camille Paglia. Feminists have to stop blaming men for their own unhappiness. For their own unhappiness. Why do we have feminists today? You don't tell me about Harvey Weinberg. The wars for feminists were fought, and just wars, righteous wars, in the 1960s and 70s, and the 80s, and even into the 90s, even to 2000. Since then, they've been rehashing. They've been finding new things to be upset about, new things to be pissed off about. Which is why now you see women who consider, young women who consider themselves feminists, wearing shirts that proudly proclaim the word bitch. Because that's become the ideal now. Or badass. Or something like that. Feminism has turned nasty and stupid. And people, women who proclaim themselves feminists today, a lot of them run from the label. They don't want to be called feminists, but they are. And if a man blows his nose, they'll jump up and say, hey, how come he can blow his nose and I can't? Well, the fact is you can. So shut up already and live your life and don't be pissed off all the time because you're not making the world a better place. All right, we'll take a break and we'll be back. And I'm inviting the feminists to come back too. All right, guys, I think that we are back. Howard Riell, Real Truth. Andrew McCarthy was a guest of Sebastian Gorka talking about Attorney General William Barr cleaning house, and finally the investigators themselves, the perpetrators of a 2-year-long attempted coup d'etat, finally may get their day in the dock. Let's listen.
It's so exciting when the
Yeah, let me say something more important, Andy, and I trust I can call you Andy since you'll never know. Congress is not supposed to be doing criminal investigation. They're doing it because they feel like it, because they think it'll bring them power. Judges are not supposed to legislate, they're supposed to judge. But activist liberal judges, they do legislate from the bench because they feel like it. They want power. So the Democrat Party is not concerned with what should be or what's legal or what's not. They do what they want to do, just like children. Children aren't supposed to eat 3 pounds of candy, but they do because they feel like it.
Formatic legislative purposes. It's not supposed to be like a grand jury going after somebody for tax evasion. And I just think they're abusing the statute. I also think it's very short-sighted. You know, the first rule of politics, I think, is what goes around comes around.
Yes.
And I'm not so sure you want to be living in a world where this kind of stuff goes on.
On this issue of statutes and mandates and who has the mandate to do which thing in the American system, there was that moment in Attorney General Barr's press conference last week where he was asked by a reporter, why did you make a determination about obstruction of justice? Why didn't you just punt that the way Mueller had punted it to you? Why didn't you just give that to Congress? Andy, I know impeachment is this weird mixture of politics and kind of quasi-judicial at the same time, but is it Congress's job to make those kinds of determinations from a special counsel's findings?
No, of course not. In fact, look at the way the game gets played, Seth. They demand a report because the regulations provide that the special counsel has to have a report, right?
Yes.
But the special counsel, the regulations also say the special counsel's report is supposed to be a confidential report for the special counsel to the Attorney General. And just so people know that there's not great mystery or complexity to why that's in, what they're trying to do is make a special counsel function the way a normal prosecutor does, right, to the extent that that's possible, because a special counsel is in the Justice Department chain of command. This is not an independent counsel, that constitutional anomaly that we had in the 1990s. This is a prosecutor who's in the executive branch but is brought in from the outside. So he's in the executive chain of command. In every prosecutor's office across the country, prosecutors meet with their supervisors once or twice a year to go through their cases and decide which ones to close and which ones are worth pursuing. And if you close the case, usually you have to explain to your supervisor why you're closing the case. Sometimes that's very straightforward. Other times it requires a little bit of a memorandum to lay it out. But almost no prosecutor in America on his own hook can just close a case or indict a case. So what happens here is the subordinate, the special counsel, is supposed to provide a memo to his supervisor.
All right, I don't want to hear any more about memos. Andy McCarthy, thank you very much. We've had an attempted coup d'etat in this country. And that should affect you more than simply saying, how about that? A coup d'etat attempts to take away from you and from me our power to select our leaders. And once that's gone, we're at the mercy of a merciless government. Coup d'etat. People have to be investigated now. People have to go to jail. Hopefully some people will be hanged for trying to wrest control of this country away from the American people. Hopefully we'll see some justice. I think I hear music playing in the distance. Let's take a break and we'll be back.
Grandpa's Monica serving on in the front range of Colorado since 1994. We specialize in guns and currently have over 400 guns for sale. We also buy, sell, pawn, and trade for gold, silver, musical instruments, knives, equipment, quads, side-by-side, points,
obligated towards sending them. Call us at 888-765-HERB, 888-765-4372 to send your no obligation report.
And here we go from the Daily Wire. Former President Barack Obama and twice failed presidential candidate Hillary Clinton were ripped for their failure to use the word Christian in their responses to the devastating attacks in Sri Lanka on Sunday, instead referring to those slaughtered as, quote, Easter worshippers, unquote. So Obama and Clinton and others on the left can't get themselves to say Muslim, can't get themselves to say Christian. If only they would apply that rule to everything and finally shut their mouths. Item from CNBC.com. The Standard & Poor's 500 headed for a record close on Tuesday as Wall Street cheered stronger than expected quarterly profits from some of the largest publicly traded U.S. companies. The broad index traded 0.8% higher, above an all-time closing high of 2,930.75 set in September 20th, unquote. Record close today of the S&P 500, my friends, altogether as one. Thank you, President Trump. Item from CNN. Pete Buttigieg opened up about his faith Monday, expressing confidence that he'll be able to unite many different groups of people because, quote, God does not have a political party, unquote. My friends, that's about as stupid a comment as I've heard. Let's take the issue of homosexuality, right? Since Mr. Buttigieg is gay. The Bible says homosexuality is a crime. It's an offense. It calls it an abomination and sentences gays to death. So if you have a Republican Party that is not in favor of gay marriage, and you have a Democrat Party that is in favor of gay marriage, well then obviously the Republican Party platform is in accord with the Bible, and the Democrats oppose the Bible. So there is politics in religion. Item from the Jerusalem Post. If Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has his way, alongside Katzrin, Ramot, and Ramat Magshimim, and the Golan Heights, there may someday be a community named Kiryat Trump. That's right, Netanyahu wants to name a city in Israel after Donald Trump. I think it's a great idea. Item from Breitbart. Representative James Grant, a Republican member of the Florida House of Representatives, says he's seeking to, quote, maintain the integrity of Florida's Constitution, unquote, and uphold voter intent by proposing legislation clarifying criteria for the restoration of voting rights for Florida's nearly 1.4 million ex-felons, unquote. My friends, back in the 70s, I used to watch a TV show called Beretta with Robert Blake. And the theme song was sung by Sammy Davis Jr. And he said, if you can't do the time, don't do the crime. I don't want 1.5 million ex-felons voting. They made the decision to commit the crimes. They were found guilty. They spent their time in jail, and this is part of that sentence. Item from Breitbart. President Trump berated MSNBC's Joe Scarborough on Tuesday, calling his show angry, dumb, and sick. Quote, morning psycho, who helped get me elected in 2016 by having me on free all the time, has nosedived, Trump tweeted. Too angry, dumb, and sick. A really bad show with low ratings and will only get worse, unquote. My friends, as usual, the president is correct. Joe Scarborough is an asswipe. I've never heard him say anything intelligent. And on top of everything, he was stupid enough to marry Mika Brzezinski. Item from Breitbart. Monday, during a CNN town hall event from New Hampshire, Senator Bernie Sanders, the candidate for the 2020 Democrat presidential nomination, was asked about giving convicted felons the ability to vote. He was asked if he would give the Boston Marathon bomber the right to vote, and Bernie Sanders said yes. That's enough for Bernie Sanders. I'll see you tomorrow.